Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, and Happy New Year. This is Stacy Sanderson. Just taking some time to chat a little bit about a different way of thinking about narcissism. And this is something that I talked about today in a workshop I'm giving. And a while ago, it became really curious to me, or confusing, about why the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Narcissistic Personality Disorder became the go-to resource for understanding difficult people. It's a real leap, is what I'm saying. And so if we consider the DSM, it's written for medical professionals, mental health clinicians, psychiatrists, psychologists. It's there as a guide. It's there as a tool. It's an assessment tool. It's really to be used for that kind of clinical interpretation. So I am at a bit of a loss to know how this translated into the mainstream language. And frankly, I think it's because it's just so validating to confirm what's wrong with someone, right? But the problem is that so many of us aren't really qualified, nor do we know how to really apply that information. And so one of the things that I like to talk about is, the difference between what is, diagnostic criteria and what are someone's traits or characteristics, right? So I don't think any of us would like it very much if we were being measured against, particular diagnostic criteria. It's a bit of an example of how, a little bit of information can be a dangerous thing. And so when I'm talking to a client about someone in their life who might be narcissistic, what I would like to know about is what are their traits, what are their characteristics, but more importantly, what are the patterns that you observe and participate in? So if you happen to be, a psychologist or psychiatrist or a mental health professional, then yeah, you can synthesize some of that information. But realistically, what needs to happen here is you're, as an individual, stepping back and looking at the patterns, right? So one of the most common patterns, just by way of example, that lines up with the diagnostic criteria is that the way that someone who's narcissistic may punish you, right? It aligns with that entitlement piece, or how they're entitled, right? Or the grandiosity even, right? If you don't treat them a particular way, or the cashier at the grocery store doesn't treat them a particular way, then there's going to be hell to pay, right? Like there's a punitive aspect that happens. So we'll definitely focus a little bit more on this because I'm going to be breaking down the DSM criteria and decoding it, if you will, or explaining all of that from the point of view of traits and relational patterns, and also internalized ways of being that I believe that narcissists experience. So I got curious about this a number of years ago when I was studying personality pathology in graduate school, and was really curious about, okay, so here's the diagnostic traits, but what does this look like for the rest of us? It is definitely where there's a difference between someone who meets the criteria for full-blown narcissistic personality disorder and someone who may have narcissistic traits, and how perhaps under stress you may see someone's worst colors come out. So if you're curious about if you have someone in your life who's narcissistic and you've been, almost obsessively, compulsively researching this, Googling this, come back and look at what are the patterns that you're observing. And we'll come together again to talk more about that. So again, I wish you a happy new year, and we'll connect soon.